Well, offensive behaviour or sectarian behaviour online is not really anything any different from that which would be face to face. So anything which is deemed to be criminal, speaking to somebody face to face, would also be criminal online, and that includes any threatening behaviour. So any implied threats or threats of physical violence, anything abusive said or posted to anybody, which would include race, religion, gender aspects. And anything offensive, and some of the examples that have been used in the past are where individuals have posted offensive comments, maybe in relation to disasters where there's been a large amount of lives taken and lost. Ibrox disaster as an example of that, or comments in relation to specific football players and who maybe have health problems or issues like that. That would be classed as offensive, and depending on the circumstances, potentially sectarian as well. And if you look at sectarianism specifically, it's generally discussed in the context of religion. It's wider than that, but for the purposes of this, the sectarianism could be classed as a definition being narrow-minded beliefs that lead to ill will, malice, prejudice, discrimination towards members or presumed members of a religious denomination. And the most common one that we come across, the denomination of Catholic and Protestant within the Christianity faith. So that would be any threatening, abusive or offensive comments around that subject could be classed as sectarianism, depending on the circumstances. That's quite a simple one for ourselves. We monitor the internet regularly on open source, which means effectively we monitor the sites that all members of the public have access to. And where we come across inappropriate, threatening comments, abusive comments, we will investigate that as a criminal investigation. But what we also have is members of the public coming to us regularly with that same information. There's members of the public out there who will actively look for such offensive comments as well, and they will regularly come to us, turning up at police offices or emailing us to the police email addresses with the information that we're looking for to progress that inquiry. And usually that is in the form of a screenshot of the offensive comment or tweet. And if that's not possible, what we ask people to do is try and capture the user information and the web address, and we can follow that up from there. And even if individuals delete their whole account or delete the tweet, there's ways and means for us to gather that and grasp that information and capture it in the form of a screenshot to be able to identify the individual responsible. Well, that would, as I say, the offensive aspect of the test would be, would it be offensive to a reasonable person? So that's the test that would be applied. Most of it, if it's common sense, so anything that's offensive or abusive, and the examples are used where mocking disasters or mocking individuals, they are by definition offensive. But what we would do is we would liaise with the Procurator Fiscal as part of a protocol, a wider protocol, to determine the best way to take every individual inquiry on. And each one would be based on its own merits. So there's no hard and fast defined rule. Some are quite clear, some are quite clearly not. But there's that area in the middle where, depending on the circumstances, depending on the type of tweet or post that's online, it could be classed as offensive. The test would be, is it offensive to a reasonable person, the average person in the street? Well, we have numerous pieces of legislation that will allow us to deal with that. Offensive behaviour at football and Threatening Communications Act, Telecommunications Act, Breach of the Peace, criminal justice legislation. There's a variety of legislation that will allow us to pursue each individual case, and again, depending on the circumstances and the comments within, based on that, we would decide what's the most appropriate legislation to pursue in order to get to meet the criteria for that particular tweet or posting. Some of the punishments are quite severe, so you can be up to 5 years imprisonment for certain types of offences, depending on what legislation is used again. So I think what people don't realise, and some underestimate, is that when you're posting something, if you're posting it from afar, that doesn't absolve you of responsibility for that. It's just as criminal whether it's face to face or whether it's posted online. And the punishments for that can be quite severe, up to 5 years in imprisonment. Well, it's a huge impact, and again, that's something that individuals haven't really thought through when they've posted something online. What happens is, as part of that investigation, what we will do is we'll seek a warrant to further that investigation, which will involve searching an individual's premises, and the purpose being to identify the device and the individual who sent it. Now, that's not as easy as it sounds. The warrant will allow us to search through a person's house and go through their belongings, not just their belongings, but their family's belongings. So drawers, cupboards, personal effects, all these things, and seize all internet-enabled devices. So it's not just your laptop, it's your iPad, it's your iPhone, it's your Xbox, your smart TV. All these things can be seized whether they belong to the person who tweeted it or the members of the family, to allow us to identify the particular device that was sent from, and from that, the individual that sent it. So you can imagine the disruption to a family when the police turn up at your door and they're going through your personal belongings. And that's a bit that people underestimate as well. It also extends to a working environment. So if we believe it's been sent from a working environment, again, the warrant would permit us to search the premises and seize any internet-enabled devices again from there to allow us to progress that investigation. As you can imagine, if you were sitting there as an employee, the last thing you want is the police coming to your employer's door and seizing the equipment. I dare say they wouldn't be too happy. Well, if you go into the Police Scotland internet website, that'll have that information there. And there's a variety of charities that are about as well that provide information. Nil by Mouth is a well-known charity. They'll provide that information specifically in relation to sectarianism. There's a lot of research and independent studies done on sectarianism in society. It gives you the details of that as well. Police Scotland websites is good, Scottish Government websites are good for that as well, and actually a lot of school websites provide that information. If they need anything more, they can come to us and we can provide that guidance. Well, a variety of people. We've had examples of people from America, Australia, and certainly all over the UK reporting offensive messages to us. And it's important to note that, actually, it's a good point to mention here, because regardless of where you're posting that tweet from, whether it's abroad or whether it's here, if that message is intended to be read here, that will be dealt with as a criminal inquiry in this country, and you could be prosecuted. So that's an important one to note. And it's also, if you look at, when we're talking about the reasonable person earlier on, the test being, is it offensive to a reasonable person? We have reasonable people from all over the world reporting these incidents to us regularly, so clearly it is offensive to them as well. So a worldwide audience for internet, police are a worldwide organisation, and it's important that individuals understand that, and that wherever they are, it's still offensive if the intent is for it to be read in this country.